There we go. I think we're started there. Hi, people on YouTube and Xiaohong. Okay, well, welcome everybody to Tuesday Talks. We're super excited for you to join us. I am very, very honored and grateful to my guests who are waking up super early. It's 5 a.m. for them. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I just wanted to let people know if you need Chinese support, we do have another stream. So you should be going there. And if you need Korean support as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into the chat if you guys haven't seen it yet. And we, as usual, will be doing Q&A kind of throughout. So make sure that if you have questions already, go ahead and start asking them, because we'll want to cover that while we're talking, but we will also have time at the end to answer questions. So before we start, I just want to say congratulations. Last week we played Spot Mr. View, and we have another winner. Yay!
Yay!
Thank you so much. It's really an honor.
We'll see you the interviewing with us when you apply. Good luck.
All right, thank you, Tuesday Talks.
So there, congratulations to our 3 winners. We've had 3 winners who have won Spot Mr. View, and we're super excited that we've been able to, thanks to this anonymous donor, give this money away. So we hope that it's helpful for your college application process and your college life, and congratulations. All right, so again, here are the links if you need to go. I'm just checking in with my colleagues because I see a little question here. Can everybody see and hear the people? I think we're good. Becky, Nikki, you guys can hear me, right? Okay, perfect. All right, so I am going to have Becky and Nikki introduce themselves real quick. Thank you so much for joining me at 5 a.m. And thank you for being willing to have this wonderful conversation about FIT with us. So if you guys don't mind just briefly introducing yourself, and then we'll get started.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Becky Conowitz, and I serve as Dean of Undergraduate Admission at Santa Clara University.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Excited to be here with you today. My name is Nikki Cooper, and I'm an assistant director at Stanford University.
Fantastic. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Gloria. I am one of the co-founders of Initial View and host of Tuesday Talks. So thank you once again to all the sponsor schools who help us get the word out for this. We're so excited to see all of you coming from so many different schools and so many parents, students, counselors. So thank you again for helping us with this. All right, so before we dive into kind of today's topic, I wanted to put this out there and if you all can type into the chat, when you hear the words university fit or college fit or just fit in general, what comes to mind? And I'm going to stop sharing so that I can make sure that people can see us and hear us. Can everybody see and hear us? Okay. All right, great. So university fit, what does that mean? Okay, yeah, great. Academic and social needs are met. Matching vibes. Okay, great. A college that caters to your preferences, both academically and otherwise, weather, lifestyle, where you can come away with the best experience, culture, curriculum, how you can contribute to the community, somewhere you feel like you can be your best self. You love the university and the university loves you. A place where you can pursue your goals, where you'll be challenged but not too stressed, where compatible with the academic expectations with the university's courses, and aligns with what you want in a college, like location, programs, or extracurriculars. You guys know what FIT is. Good job. So I wanted to start with, what do admissions officers mean when they say fit? Because we've gotten a little bit of a sense of what you all think fit is. And I'd love to hear from Becky and Nikki, what are the types of things that you are thinking when you say the word fit, or is this a good fit for you?
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. So often when we're talking about fit, I'm thinking a lot about how the student will take advantage of the resources on campus. If they're like looking to do specific research in academic areas that are strong on campus, like how they're talking about that in their application. So they're aware of what is on campus that they would be interested in. That's big for fit because that shows that you're going to belong on campus. Academics are very important to ensure that, I see that you're succeeding in your high school, which will also succeed on campus, because it is really important to come to campus and be able to academically succeed in your environment and not be too stressed. I know some people said somewhere where you can really thrive. And so really looking for that piece that you can, hit the ground running on campus and be able to fit in with your classes and to academically succeed. So making sure that that is a good match. And then also fit within the culture and in the community. When I look at the institution that I work at, we're very engaged with the community, whether that's at Stanford or in your hometowns or abroad. So really looking to see that engagement and how that will apply as you transition over. And so that fit comes in a lot of different areas. When I'm thinking about it, when I'm reading essays, when I'm looking at applications, I'm definitely looking at the academics, but also just listening to how you're talking about the campus itself and how you'll take advantage of the fit and kind of how you're going to engage with those students on campus and what you'll bring to campus and what you're going to take away from it as well.
Thanks, Nikki. I'll build a little bit more upon it as an enrollment leader, that when I think about fit as well, we're often giving institutional priorities with fit. And so that might be pressures or encouragement to enroll an academically achieved class. And so I may be looking at a student who has all A's and all B's because we are seeing over time, whether it's Santa Clara or Stanford or another university, we might be seeing a more competitive landscape with academics, and our faculty are asking for more high achieving students who are interested in research, interested in the idea of learning, and want to show that through their academic achievements. So that might be letter grades, research, extracurricular activities. The other way institutional priorities may come in for fit is we may be, maybe the prior year we enrolled more women than men, and I might be looking for a good fit man to join our campus. We may also be looking for geographic representation. So we may have, for example, in a country be seeing only students applying from very urban areas like a Beijing or Seoul. And so we might say, oh, well, this is an institutional fit to attract a student from the countryside of one of those regions to create, again, interesting perspective in our classrooms. So fit is often, as Nikki said, about what a student shares with us, but I think fit at an enrollment leader's lens is also sometimes what we need as a campus, as we're trying to create an ideal class and a campus that is bringing multiple perspectives. And so we may get those directions from our leadership, from our faculty. Sometimes they come well in advance, and sometimes they come while we're reading applications in the midst of our cycle.
Yeah. So this is a question, because it sounds like from what you're saying, Becky, with the institutional fit, that is like usually out of the students' control. They're not able
Very
to.
much so. And sometimes it's out of my control too.
But are there institutional priorities that don't change year by year? And what I mean by that is, like, there's something very specific to Stanford. There's something very specific to Santa Clara that's just like an institutional priority, an institutional value per se, that doesn't change. And where can a student kind of find that?
Great question. I'll start with Santa Clara's institutional values. I think you'll find them in our mission and value statement, right? I think you can also find them in strategic plans that are on campus. You can listen to how an admission counselor is speaking to those values. So for Santa Clara, we're a Jesuit Catholic institution really focused on students who are going to engage with the world around them, making it a better place, asking tougher questions of society, of corporations that make sure they're caring about the environment, caring about those that are voiceless, speaking up for research that is needed, politics that is needed, economic values that are needed, to ask the question of how are we leaving the world better than we found it? And so those values, those don't change. You'll see them in our supplemental questions on the Common App as well. We ask students to reflect on our mission and our values. So that doesn't change year over year. That is always something, and in some ways it manifests in applications. It's not just in what the student's writing, how they're involved in their community, but what others are saying about them in letters of recommendations too.
Yeah.
I would say for Stanford, like a lot of the things I listed are big on impact, community engagement. And what we mean by impact is how are you leaving behind the people you're communicating with in your classrooms, with your teachers, and changing it for the better, or helping provide that opportunity for change for yourself and others. And so a big one that Stanford looks at is impact and diverse perspectives. And so while we have specific priorities, we're always looking to see how you are seeing how your perspective is diverse and what you can bring to the table to communicate in the classrooms, in your internships, and in your future careers, because we're really looking for students who are going to make an impact on campus in the research they're doing, and then continuing that in their future careers. And you can talk about that in a variety of ways throughout your application that helps make it very evident for us to see that you're searching for that impact. And a way to find this, honestly, we're very upfront in our Discover Stanford, our virtual sessions, any communication you have with an admissions officer. If you're not watching our Discover Stanford and you're interested, a lot of the information about what Stanford is going to be exciting about, what the institution is looking for, is in those presentations. And if you're watching this presentation, you're like, oh, wow, they talk about research a lot or community engagement a lot, and that doesn't excite you, it's probably not a great fit, because that's what our campus is about, and that's what we're looking for. And so those little pieces you can gather by watching those sessions, maybe looking at the web pages and seeing, what we value. And Stanford is frequently talking about impact, about different perspectives, and about research and impact through research. And so trying to find the repetition through talking with admissions officers and perusing maybe different social media sites. And so it's really kind of making those connections and figuring out, do you align with those values? And that's how you would essentially find if you were a good fit for the institution that you were looking at.
Yeah, super helpful. So, we've talked about, and a lot of the participants have kind of typed in a lot of these factors of fit, but I just wanted to touch on, what are some of the factors, and what are maybe the more, important factors of fit, like for admissions officers, from an admissions officer's perspective. I mean, preference is important to the student, but what are the factors? What would you say are some of the factors of fit? What do you think is the most important factor of fit, maybe?
I think for many of us, it's going to be an academic fit. I think hands down, we're all academic institutions of learning. We are building a class for our faculty to inspire, to teach, to do research with, to build the minds of the future. So we need to see the potential academically to achieve at a pretty high level. And so that may come across in grades, in exam results, in experiences in the classroom, what others say about you. But I think academic fit is the first part. I know many of us who have read applications for many years, we usually go to the transcript first to see what kind of courses a student took, what curriculum are they on around the world, how did they achieve in that curriculum, how do they compare against their peers in that curriculum. what is going on academically first. So that would be how I would say, I think the most important fit is going to be academics first.
Yeah, I mean, definitely agree with that. You know, we're really looking at the academic fit, again, because we do also want you to come to campus. Stanford's a very rigorous campus. There's a lot of opportunities here, which is fantastic. And so ensuring that if you do come here, that you are also going to be able to fit and succeed and not be overwhelmed by the curriculum here. So that academic fit is incredibly important. And students can show that in a variety of ways. We get a lot of context about what is offered to you. And so sometimes I'll get students to be, you know, really worried about maybe that their curriculum isn't as strong as the school down the road. And it's definitely very much looking into what are you taking advantage of at the institution that you're at to show that you're really driving home that you are doing all that you can with the academics that are offered to you. So that's a big one that we've been looking at in recent years to try to gain those perspectives that maybe not everyone's coming from a top school, but what are you doing to be at the top of your school that you're currently at by taking advantage of all your resources, because Stanford has a lot of resources. So we want to bring someone to campus who academically can fit and can take advantage of all the resources. And so that academic fit can be found in a lot of ways, but it's incredibly important as well.
Then I would build upon that, Nikki, too, that I think one of the other aspects of your academic achievements in high school or secondary school is also what you want to study at university, right? And maybe you're undecided and you're sure that we have that program, but I can't tell you how many applications I also read where the student is clearly interested in architecture and we don't have it. And then they really want to be in Silicon Valley and they're really looking for architecture and we still don't have it. It's just not a good fit. Maybe a straight A student, really strong in their curriculum, but they're forcing a location and a major that we just don't have. So that's not a good fit. We can't serve that student. We wouldn't want to admit that student because we have no home for their interests.
Yeah. So when we talk about figuring out whether or not you academically fit an institution, there are, you know, obviously multiple ways for students to kind of figure that out, find that out. Can you touch on what students should be looking for? For example, I mean, I think that there's some metrics that people kind of look at, but also are there other ways to kind of figure out, you know, you mentioned, Becky, you mentioned majors and things. So can you guys touch on like, where do you find this information? How do I know that I'm kind of in that band of academically strong? And also, are there majors that fit me? Like, what's the environment like in terms of the study environment, the research environment? What should a family do to kind of figure out? I mean, because I think a lot of people probably the first thing they do is kind of go to the rankings and say, okay, well, I want to apply to, you know, I'm a pretty good student, so I'm going to do, you know, 20 to 50 or on the rankings. Like, what's a different way to kind of approach this fit?
I think that's a good question. I think Gloria, what you mentioned first is I think I'm a pretty good student. I would say it has to start with reflection and understanding your potential and your everyday achievement in the classroom. And so having a really honest understanding of yourself as a student is where you begin that. And so you may be thinking about yourself in an individual course, whether it's math or history, or you may be thinking about yourself overall in your class, in the group of students you're studying with, or in the curriculum, if you're on A levels or IB, where are you trending? Because I think if you understand yourself honestly, then you'll think about, okay, how am I going to compare in a larger applicant pool? If you are looking at the rankings and you're applying to the top 50 schools, you're competing with the most competitive students around the world. And are you going to be in that pool standing out academically? If that is what is most important to us for fit, you need to have that honest conversation with yourself. If you're an average student and you're applying to the top schools, you're not going to be average in their pool. You're going to be below average. And so thinking about applying to a group of schools where you are above average is maybe a group of schools that isn't in the top 50 where everybody is looking. You might look really strong in their applicant pool. I think you can gauge this sort of academic benchmarking, if you want to say, taking an honest look at yourself and saying, okay, how am I doing academically and where is this school? You may want to look on their profile, see what their past historical trends have been, what other students who have attended. It's similar is what I tell athletes. If you're looking to play on our, basketball team or our women's Division I national championship team, take a look at the roster and see and look at the level that you're coming in at. So really understanding our current students, whether it's profiles, stories, and seeing where they are achieving might give you an indication of who you're competing with for admission, but also who is going to be in the classroom with you, who's going to be pushing you, who's going to be on your group projects.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. It's really trying to understand by looking at, the statistics. You can find that on Google, trying to figure out like what XYZ school, kind of maybe what their average scores are. And I know maybe you don't have the average scores, but you can really look at where you are honestly landing. We get a lot of applications that it genuinely doesn't feel like maybe a student did a really in-depth analysis of what their academic abilities are and what the institutions that they are applying to. And at the end of the day, there's so many institutions that you can apply to that provide that academic and that support and the success path. It just may not be the top 50 institutions that you're looking at. And I think really getting down to the honest reflection of what your academics look like into the pool. And also a thing that we've talked about, both of us have talked a lot about, is research. And so I have a lot of students that, are academically doing really well, but at a top research institution, I would say that that's also a very important academic fit, maybe not in every area, but when you come to Stanford, likely you're going to be doing research in some level or another. And so being honest, if you're interested in that research process, some students are generally not interested in as much research. And so that can kind of also be different in your academic fit, because research institution is going to want students who are going to do research. And you can find that by looking at the websites and seeing what the students are getting involved in. Again, by listening to our presentations, we talk so much about research on our Discover Stanford's, on our webpage, like when I'm speaking with you. And so kind of like listening and okay, what are students doing for research, or, what are students doing when they graduate? Like, are those things that you're interested in, and does that align with your performance? And so it's a lot of reflection. It's a lot of reading. It's maybe reaching out to visitor centers. We have the ability where a lot of times you get asked questions. I know that we have a student panel, and you can talk to the students and often ask them questions like, what were you doing in high school? Like, what do you think you were successful? And looking and saying okay, have I done something similar to that? And so it's all of these pieces and putting them together, being honest with the process and being honest with what your interests are, because it's okay even if a certain institution is a top institution, if your interests don't align with it, it's not beneficial for either party, really.
Maybe I would add to that. I think we're also here with Initial View, and the fact that your ability to have a conversation in English, your excitement to be in a diverse classroom and be with different perspectives is also a part of this academic fit. And so when you think of a place like Santa Clara or a place like Stanford, we don't have English support experiences for you. And so if you can't jump in and demonstrate in the admission process that you're ready to think critically, engage in research at a place like Stanford or Santa Clara, we're going to put you out in the community. You're going to be serving homelessness. You're going to be understanding economic impacts of post-COVID times in Silicon Valley. And if you can't do that in English and you're not ready to achieve at that high level with your classmates, you're not a good fit for our campuses too. And so we really look for that ability to be bilingual or dynamic with those people who are not like you, right? That's a big part of Silicon Valley. We have people from all over the world here, and we need to support that on our campuses, right? We need to be a reflection of that on our campuses. So yes, it's about academic achievement, but it's also being ready to put yourself in uncomfortable situations where that academic achievement can still shine.
So can you tell me what you think about the words balanced list? You know, as we talk about fit, we are talking about kind of a range of schools, right? You're looking at a range of schools that you want to apply to. And I think a lot of students and families are like, we're just not quite sure where we academically fit. You know, we're all strong students, but, you know, there are a lot of strong schools and it's super competitive. Everybody's applying to all of them. So talk a little bit about what it means to look for a balanced list and how some recommendations and advice you have about that.
I find a balanced list so important to have, and I think that we often don't talk about this enough, or maybe in ways that is very hard to conceptualize. But I see it as, you know, being honest about your academic fit and your preparedness, and having a handful of schools that you are pretty confident about, and you feel very solid that with a strong application that you feel that you could be accepted. And I think that that's super important, is to have those institutions that you know that you are really, really strongly aligned with, and then having a handful as well that are a stretch, and you know that there may be a stretch and that you're putting yourself out on the limb. And then also a handful of safety schools. And I say this because I get so many students who say, well, I applied to all top 10 institutions and I didn't get into a single one. What did I do wrong? And it's not that you're not academically prepared, it's that you applied to all stretch schools, and instead of like balancing it across a spectrum of institutions that you were interested in, that provided that academic foundations for you and the interest aligned with it across the board, not just applying to all the top 10 institutions, because you're not going to, all the top 10 institutions, all the top 50, all the top 100, we're not all the same. We're not, and we offer a lot of different things. So if you're not really thinking about how you fit on those campuses, like we're you know, us in Santa Clara are very different. We have very different values. And so thinking of that fit and how that aligns, and picking those institutions that you fit at very strategically, while also stretching yourself, having a comfort zone, and a few that, you know, you're really excited about, but maybe you look more like a top student there versus an you know, competitive student. So it's hard to balance, but I think it's just ensuring that you aren't just applying to the top schools because of the rankings, and really diving into what it looks like in each of these institutions.
Another way to think of a balanced list, since we just crossed April 1st, is thinking about the deadlines that you apply to at these schools, right? Because if you wait and only apply under, let's say, a regular decision, and all your decisions come out at April 1st next year, you have no plans. If that, as Nikki shared, students apply the top 10, they all find out on May 1st, or April 1st, excuse me, you're waitlisted or denied at all your schools. There are many universities who do rolling admission, maybe have an early action or an early decision or early decision restrictive. So a balanced list also includes the deadlines that you're applying under, and really knowing and identifying those stretch schools, those maybe schools, and then I think I'm going to be a top candidate. And that may give you admission results from anywhere from December to April. And so you have some options, right? I would say that's another way to back into a balanced list, is really looking at those deadlines you're going to apply to, and therefore see the results come in at different times. I think that's another practical way to align your lists so that you have some time and some options in the spring of your senior year.
Mm-hmm. I definitely don't want to say there's a certain amount for each area, but I would definitely try to not just have 10 reach schools and one maybe and one, try to even out a little bit, because I often have students also that talk about like, well, the majority of my applications were, you know, at the more competitive institutions, which is fine, but maybe be a little bit more selective. We're selective. You can also be selective in the institutions that you were looking at and what you were looking for. And I can sometimes tell when a student's like, oh, I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring just in case. And those tend to be less competitive applications because we can tell that you're kind of just like hoping and praying, you know, that this might work out, which I want to encourage you to have the stretch goals and to not sell yourself short, but I also really want you to be prepared and strategic on your applications to ensure that the best outcome is there for you as well.
Yeah. Go ahead, Becky.
Go ahead. I would just add one more thing to that. You know, there's lots of trends that we speak about in higher education admissions. In the last couple of years, international applicants have really been on an upward trend to apply to US universities, right? And so I think another piece of this is paying attention to the applicant pool trends. And so most international students now are finding those pools more competitive because there's more of you, right? And universities have not changed how many spaces or how many seats are on their campus. And so that also is a driving force in this because many universities, as they serve their communities, and for us, it's California or the 50 US states, as well as all the countries, really trying to make sure that you understand those other impacts that are, as we talked about, institutional priorities that you can't control. And so as different campuses are looking at either enrolling more international students or less, that might be another piece that is a good time when to apply. And again, you may be more attractive to a university that is saying, oh, we want to increase our international students versus a university that is seeing a growth in international applications, but have more space for them.
So both of you have mentioned throughout, as we've talked, a few mistakes that you see, you know, for example, applying for architecture when there is no architecture. Can you touch on a few other kind of big mistakes that you see in light of what you all have been talking about in understanding fit?
Yeah, I sometimes get that, you know, I often get the students are really excited to live in San Francisco. And I think that, which is such a small piece, but Stanford is south of San Francisco. And so just like really doing the research of where the institution is and really focusing on the institution itself. I get a lot about excited to live in San Francisco, excited to live, you know, and that's great, but we're not in the area. And so that kind of makes me wonder, like, how much do you know about Stanford? Like, what, you know, what are you really looking forward to? And so that's a little one, but sometimes it can really make me question, like, what about Stanford do you know? Because Stanford is kind of its own little bubble south of San Francisco, and you can go up to San Francisco. And so I think doing research of where your institution is, the community that's in, and understanding the community can be really important because, I mean, a lot of institutions value the community engagement. So understanding the community around the campus, what the campus values is really important. Specifically, very much majors, or sometimes I get a student that, again, is like applying for a specific major, or we don't have that offered. And so that will be a big one. Or speaking on opportunities that we actually don't have at Stanford. Sometimes they'll be like, I'm really excited for this, but we don't have that. And so I sometimes, you know, I'm wondering like what it is that they're looking into, or maybe it was a different institution. And so that's a big thing. And also just making sure on your application that if you use the word Stanford or Santa Clara, that that's the institution that you're applying to, because I will tell you how many times I get a student that says that they're really excited about MIT, and I'm not MIT. So it's just something small, but those little pieces can truly make a difference. So those are just a couple off the top of my mind right now.
Yeah, I'll add to that because we often get students that write University of Santa Clara. I'm like, we're not a UC, we're not a university of. But going back to that campus feel, I know with COVID, people are traveling again, and we used to see this in 2018, 2019, where students would write that they, really enjoyed their visit to campus as they drove by. Well, if you drive by Santa Clara's campus when you're on a holiday visiting family in the Bay Area, you actually can't do that at Santa Clara, where you can't drive through campus. Driving by would not give a sense. We're a small residential community where students can walk from their residence halls to their classrooms with their AirPods in on a skateboard and never see a car, right? And so if you tell me you drive by, you really didn't get to know campus and you're not understanding that community, that residential community that we are, and you didn't step into campus and talk to somebody. And that's what we're looking for. That's the kind of community, as I mentioned before, we're very interactive. Our faculty want to know you by your name. And so if you're just driving by, that gives me a sense of, okay, you're not willing to take that risk and come in and meet us. I think another example of mistakes that students make is not understanding our deadlines. And that just takes a little research. Santa Clara, over the years, our early action pool is really where we have the highest acceptance rate. And a lot of international students wait till regular. And that's when we have less than a 30% acceptance rate. And so really understanding our deadlines and when to apply is a mistake that can put a lot of students on our wait list. Highly competitive if they had just applied early action. And that's going to vary at different schools. Another area that we see is on the Common App, students can self-report, share a lot of information around testing in classes, and then it doesn't align with the transcript, or they tell us a TOEFL score that they decided not to send us, and then we got a different TOEFL score. And so they're not matching their whole story. And so I think that's another thing is you're filling out your Common application and you're telling us, making sure that all the additional information that's coming through matches. It's okay to have a change and let us know in your final year after you submitted, but it's really difficult for us to understand and put the pieces together if your application comes in and transcripts and letters don't speak to what was shared on that application. And so that is often a mistake. It could be an oversight. It could be done intentionally. I'm not sure, but it really confuses our readers.
Yeah, these are great. Well, there are some questions coming in, so I want to make sure we get to them. But before we kind of dive into that, we have a couple more slides that we can share, and let me know if you can see them. I asked both Becky and Nikki to give some words of advice, just general words of advice that they would like for people to know. And so these are the ones that, there's lots of advice, but I asked for two specifically from each. So I'm just keeping these up there. I think you all can read them, but Becky and Nikki, do you have any additional thoughts to what these are saying in light of what we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think, I mentioned this, just talk to several people, whether that's your academic advisors, your family members, your siblings, and get a sense of what your interests are. Start being curious about really what it is that you're looking for, because I find so often that it's very hard for students to really communicate why they're interested into an institution other than a specific ranking, which is fine, that's a great way to start, but to just take that conversation to the next level about what your strengths are, what your interests are, and what the interests of the institution are, and have those conversations. Because when you start talking about it with people about this institution has this offered, or they have a really, big sport community, or they don't, or there's a lot of residential on campus. Do I like that? Because when you have those conversations, you'll be like, wait a sec, this place isn't a highly residential institution. I want to live somewhere where I'm going to live on campus for all 4 years. Those conversations you're going to have with people will really help you start to see your fit a little bit more than just looking at the webpage, writing essays. So have conversations as much as you can about what you're finding and what you're looking for, because it might reveal more than what you're anticipating.
To continue on to Nikki's advice, I'd say, all that reflection and understanding who you are, just realize that it is a journey, and you're listening here today. And by the time you form that balanced list, and then by the time you hear your results, you will have also changed, right? Because you've had that experience of applying abroad. And so allowing that sort of patience and kindness to yourself, that it's a journey and you're not going to have all the answers or all the control that you wish you had. But that's what makes this process so exciting for us and exciting for you. We don't know who's going to apply next year. And we're so excited to see all those students that are interested, but you're going to change over this next year too. And so give yourself that freedom as you explore to grow. And that may also help you through this to land come May 1st with a home that is the best fit for you.
And in talking about reflection, we did have some some questions that you can start to ask yourself to understand. And this is just a small list of questions. There's so many more that you can be asking yourself. And I think I think this is one of the reasons why we do Tuesday Talks. We want you, in 10th grade, if you're a 10th grader of 11th grade, to really be asking this kind of on a regular basis. You can sit down and write down all the answers to these questions, but this is something that you can be kind of taking away when you're sitting in class. Like, I don't really like the way that this is, like, I prefer lecture, or no, I really kind of like this group work. I really, really thrive on that. And keeping that in mind as you're doing the research for the schools. And there was someone who asked the question, like, what if I'm not a confident student? Do I still have a chance to join, these elite institutions? And I think, Becky and Nikki, what would you say to that kind of question?
Yeah. First of all, I think that humility of I'm not a confident student, and that vulnerability of sharing that, I think start on that. It sounds like that may be a student who understands themselves, work on that confidence. But yes, I think it's all about if you want to apply and see us or see any school as a sort of reach or opportunity to share that, then that's who you are, right? That is an opportunity to share, like, hey, I don't have this confidence, but this school can get me to be that confident.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, we don't want every student on our campus to be the super confident student that can take on all. Like, the perspective is bringing your genuine self and how you're going to learn from the process. And I think that can be a very, very valuable trait to be express your humility and understanding that you have so much room to grow, and that you're reflecting, because again, that's a huge strength, is that reflection to grow, that hey, like, I don't quite have confidence, but I'm really looking forward to getting there. I'm interested in these things, and I think I can build and learn a lot. And that's a great perspective. And so we've talked about diverse perspectives, and that's one of those. We want different students from all different backgrounds with different expressions. And if you're genuinely bringing that yourself to that table, we'll be able to see that. So no, I don't think you have to be the most confident. That's all part of a process. We're all adults, and we're trying to learn to become more confident with every single day. So please don't let that keep you from applying to an institution.
Well, and the thing is, we're always learning, right? So I think it is great to be not at the top when you're so young. You actually want to keep getting there. And you coming and asking that question is amazing. That's part of the potential that I think we all would see in you if we were looking at your application.
I often use the word, again, I hate to bring up the athletic connection again, but coachable, right? If sometimes they're not a confident student, I think the bigger question is, are you teachable? Are you coachable? Because that's who our faculty love, right? They inspire the next bioengineer who is knocking on their door for office hours, asking questions, excited to join their lab, excited to take up an internship that came across a listserv, that they want to make a connection with one of our alumni. And they trust the student will see that as an honor, rise to the occasion, might come back to them and say, can you read, my interview notes, because I've got this interview and I need help. That's all part of an academic institution. I know at Santa Clara that willingness to ask for help from faculty, but to see that also as a gift, and not come in so overly confident that you don't ask for help. You've missed the point of what a college campus is trying to create, especially at Santa Clara, or it sounds like at Stanford too. So I think that coachability, that teachability is also something we all look for. A student who loves to learn.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head really there. The eagerness to learn, just being eager, that can take you very far.
Yeah, so we have been talking about fit at a very high level. And so these last kind of words of advice we're giving people are in hopes of you just kind of starting the research process, or strengthening your research process. And next week, we're actually going to talk about fit again with another group of schools, and we might dig a little deeper on some specifics. But we did want to kind of share some ways that you can start charting when you do the research. And I know that some people are saying that this isn't clear. Some are saying it's clear. It might be depending on your internet connection. But this chart, examples of this chart can be found in your Initial View portal, or if you're a counselor in your Initial View counselor account, we do have resources. This will be there, and we'll send an email out after this talk so that you can get this picture. But basically, you just want to get out an Excel sheet, or Pages, or Word, or whatever you want to use, and kind of put in a name of the university, and then think about the things that are important. Obviously, today we talked about how the academic fit is probably the most important, but there are going to be things that you may care about. And for some people, like, you don't care where you live, and so that's great. But for some of you, you're like, I need to have sun, or I need to have, I cannot have it be freezing, or I definitely want 4 seasons and I want snow. That that kind of stuff can be charted as well. So this is just an example of how you can do it. I'm going to share one more. Let's see if we can. I'm going to share the sample just so you can see what it might look like when you fill it in. Oops. Can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
So this would be an example of a chart that has been filled in. So a few names of universities. We picked the ones that are kind of in the greater area of where Nikki and Becky are. And these are the topics: school spirit, class size, location. And these are all things that, it requires a little bit of time. It requires some time to do some research. Becky, Nikki, do you have advice on how to approach these kinds of charts?
I think it all can't be done in one night. This is something that you leave opened and you return back. I think of it a little bit like my password keeper. I keep adding more passwords for something else that I need, or updating. I think that is what this is meant for. Start it now in 10th grade, start in 11, get curious, do research, and fill it in. And it may grow down and it may grow across, so that you continue to add topics that are important to you, or universities, as I mentioned in my advice, that you never heard of. Dive in and do some research. You never know.
Yeah, I would also just say be really excited about this process. And, it might be a lot of information to look up and look into, but at the end of the day, as you're like researching these institutions, this is what's going to help you be most successful for your 4 years. You're really thinking about what you're going to experience and what you're looking for. And while it may be a lot of information to take in, that's also super exciting, because you're looking into what it is you're going to be doing for the next 4 years, and how you're going to be achieving, and how you're going to really take advantage of all the opportunities. And so just get excited about it. Take, 10 minutes a day, or however, look at one institution a week or something along those lines, and figure out what is making you excited. And once you fill out, Stanford University or Santa Clara, or University of California, Berkeley, like, when you're filling those out, and if you're feeling excited about an institution, mark that. Or if you're looking at it and you're not feeling as excited about it, take note on that. So just really be excited about the process, because I know that it is a lot of information, but when you're filling this information out, really start to listen to like the way you feel about what you are learning about each of the institutions, which I think will be really important.
I think that's so true. And another tip, I know we mentioned, our admission offices provide virtual opportunities or come visit, have welcome centers. I think the other piece of this sample that we shared is it actually will ask you to go to websites and offices for current students, because that's what you're imagining yourself becoming, right? Mm-hmm. So understanding school spirit is, you may get a glimpse of that in our videos. You may see a little information, but you want to dive in and really understand what is school spirit like. And you have to imagine yourself as a current student. And so you may be going into student life websites. You may be listening to social media posts from current students to really understand school spirit. So that's the other part of the exercise that I think is important, is you're really putting yourself and imagining yourself, and you have more access than ever to that. And so that's going to be a big part of your research, is beyond the admission office.
Fantastic. So I do want to give people a chance to ask questions. So, and while I do that, I know some people have been saying that the PowerPoint is very clear and some cannot see it. So I'm not sure if it has to do with a connection, but I am sharing kind of contact information, because I know some people will have more questions that we can't cover today. But back to talk a little bit about what, things that matter in FIT and how it comes across for you. There have been questions about, how do we know what extracurricular activities excite you? And I think that's it's an interesting question, because I would have assumed that it should be extracurriculars that excite the student, but are there extracurricular activities that excite you as an admissions officer?
The ones that excite the student. We are looking for, unique perspectives and getting engaged in the community. And it's like, I feel like I always have this like very vague answer, but you don't want too much breadth. When I look at a student and it looks like they're getting involved in everything, that's great. If that's something that you really like to do, I'm a person that I love trying new things. I love diving into different activities, and that's how I've always been. But being honest about that excitement and how it contributes to your learning process and what that brings to the table, or vice versa, someone who's really in depth into languages or a certain hobby or guitar, whatever it is, like explaining that excitement and seeing that excitement and how it contributes to your learning process and how it's going to contribute to your community, your research, your academics, how you're going to communicate in the classroom. So it's not that I want to see something that I'm excited about. It's that I want to see someone be excited about their activities and how that translates to their learning process. So it's not what I'm excited about. I get excited when someone's excited and really demonstrating how that applies.
Great.
So I don't have much more to share. I think same thing. We're not looking for you to say something that you think we need to hear, whether it's extracurriculars or in your essay. Then you have it all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think a lot of these students and families have listened to many, many Tuesday Talks, and a lot of institutions have talked about intellectual curiosity as something that's important to them, and leadership being something important to them. And so, if a student is like, yeah, I have a lot of intellectual curiosity, but I don't have lots of leadership opportunity, does that make me not a good fit for institutions like yours? So I'll start with that.
Good. We do look for leadership, but I think a thing that sometimes I would like to explain is leadership can be seen in very different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the president of 10 things and something along those lines. You can have to also show leadership in a small area and how you're taking, the steps to be a part of a community, and explaining how you utilize your own leadership styles would be more important to me than a lot of leadership. So yes, leadership is important, but it's not like you have to be this big leader, because again, not everyone on campus is going to be this like super accomplished leader. It's more so you're learning about who you are as a leader, whether that be in the classroom, on a project, even if you are part of an organization and you're not the top leader, but how you utilize your leadership skills within that, membership.
So there are quite a few questions that have to do with context. And I think we've talked about context in previous Tuesday talks. So I kind of want to just, people saying, well, how can you assess, whether or not my student performance is strong if all the schools have kind of different ways that they assess students. And so I feel, excuse me, I feel like we've kind of talked a little bit about admissions officers' knowledge and expertise on this, but do you mind kind of touching on that a little bit more? And people are saying, how much impact does advanced courses come into play when you're thinking about that? Competitions versus no competitions, like how do you have such people coming from such different environments and consequences and opportunities. How do you assess whether or not that person is going to be academically fit for your institution?
I would preface by saying for Santa Clara, 90% of our applicants have the context to tell us they're going to achieve on our campus, achieve in the classroom, achieve in the community. The problem is we don't have enough seats to accept 90% of those students, right? And so this is the story of context as we look at that achievement and understand, okay, what is the area of interest that they're applying into? How does their course curriculum and their preparation ensure? Because at Santa Clara, we admit to retain, right? We're admitting knowing this is a 4-year journey and we want you to finish. And so we're looking at that context for your duration of secondary school. So how did you achieve over time? We're looking at the courses and the curriculum offered that you were in. We know some students have choice and some do not on where they enroll for secondary school. And so we're really looking in that context. We're also looking at that piece of the results, right? Whether it's 10th grade exam results or predicted exam results or final results if students took time off after. It's all those pieces come together. For us, we also ask for letters of recommendation from a teacher. And so somebody who saw your growth over time as well. And then we also look at your own writing. For us, it's your academic maturity and your readiness for college level thought, analysis, critical thinking does show up in your main essay and in your Santa Clara supplement. So it's all of that combined, knowing that 90% of our students are totally admissible, and putting that together, saying, okay, who's going to make an interesting class as we have to pick? Who is going to fit institutional priorities? Who has demonstrated that interest to be a good fit? Where do we need students in academic areas? And then we put that all together.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of that. The majority of the students that apply, we see that there's an academic strength. I will say that for the most part of the application, that's the first thing we look at, but beyond once I decide like, okay, the student can academically succeed on campus, it doesn't take us incredibly too long to decide that. I look at that, I confirm that you're academically fit, and then I do move on to more about how you fit in other ways. And so I think sometimes people think that it's like a really big make or break. A lot of students are academically competitive. And so it's not just that piece, it's how you fit on campus in so many other ways, what you're going to be taking advantage of, like the eagerness in your essays. And so a lot of times we do like have 90% of our applications that you would succeed on campus, but how are you showing that throughout your application that you're going to not only succeed, but you're going to be incredibly eager about the opportunities. And so it's really navigating all of that. But I sometimes don't want students to get too hung up on like, we're not like looking at nitpicking every little piece of your transcript. It does take me a period of time just to look at it. Okay, I'm confirming that you're academically competitive. What else do you have to offer to bring to the campus? And then that is when you move on to the other pieces of the application to look to see how you fit otherwise and what you're going to bring to campus.
Fantastic. Well, the hour has gone by so quickly, and I know there are a lot of questions that we didn't cover. So what I would love for you to do is actually email these questions, but also keep coming back to Tuesday Talks, because all of these talks kind of cover the similar things in different, with different themes, but similar questions. So do come back. We'll be talking more about fit next week with Boston schools. So that'll be a good kind of follow-up to this session. Thank you so much, Nikki and Becky, for waking up so early to do this with us. It's been so wonderful to just have a, honest conversation with you all. And for those of you who would like to stay, a colleague of mine will be on here to talk a little bit about interviews and how that kind of fits into what we've been talking about, and any questions you might have about initial view, they'll be here to answer. And the rest of us I'm going to let Nikki and Becky go get some coffee or maybe go take a nap before their day starts. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Hey, Clara.
Hi, Oakland. I'm going to make you the host so that you can keep talking. And everybody who's still on, stay on. It's going to be a good Q&A session. All right.
Hi, everybody. All right. Okay, so if you're sticking around, so I'll be here for the next 20 or so minutes to answer any questions you have about interviews and how that plays into the larger picture of an application. My name is Yo Quinn. I'm currently an interviewer with Initial View. I'm also a former admissions officer at Swarthmore College. And any questions you have about interviews, how they work, how they get sent to schools, how they're evaluated by admissions offices, I'm here to answer your questions.